Welcome to Part 3 of Engage Students to Embrace Civility, Resolving Hurtful Incidents and Situations. We need to start with a reminder of the civil rights requirements. A hostile environment exists when hurtful conduct is serious, persistent, or pervasive and interferes with the student's ability to learn and participate. And if a school knows or should know of this concern, it must conduct a prompt, thorough, and unbiased investigation. The investigation is to determine whether a hostile environment exists for the targeted student, not to determine whether the accused student should be suspended. If a hostile environment is found to exist, schools are required to take steps that are reasonably calculated to end the harassment by the hurtful student or students and prevent retaliation, remedy the harmful effects on the target, both emotional and academic, and correct any aspects of the environment that appear to be supporting the hurtful acts. This could include how staff are treating the student, behavior management approaches, cultural competencies, implicit bias, athletic department perspectives, and others. If a student with disabilities is being bullied or engaging in bullying, the school must develop an intervention plan that addresses the identified concerns in an IEP or 504 team meeting. This must include steps reasonably calculated to end the harassment, remedy the harmful effects, and correct the hostile environment in the IEP or 504 plan. This may also, and probably will, include functional objectives to increase the student's interpersonal relationship skills. These requirements were outlined in a 2013 and 2014 Dear Colleague letters. My position or argument is that this is what should be required for all students. Every student who is experiencing a serious, persistent, or pervasive hurtful situation deserves a complete investigation of the situation and steps taken to stop the harassment, remedy the harm, and correct the hostile environment. I would also mention that if a student is experiencing this level of a hurtful situation, the student is also likely experiencing mental health concerns that are interfering with their learning. And so under Section 504, it is highly probable this student should be placed on a 504 plan. It is necessary to increase the effectiveness of staff response in minor hurtful incidents. Ensure that all staff know how to investigate to determine whether it's truly a minor hurtful incident or whether this is a minor incident that's part of an ongoing persistent or hurtful situation that must be reported to the office. Have effective skills to assist the involved students in resolving the incident and check back with the involved students to ensure the incident was resolved. School leadership must ensure effective remediation and resolution of the more serious, persistent, or pervasive hurtful situations. And, as I'm repeating again, ensuring a prompt, comprehensive, and unbiased investigation and steps reasonably calculated to stop the hurtful behavior, remedy the harm, and correct the contributing aspects of the environment, and monitor to ensure effectiveness for all students, not just protected class students. The multiple tier system of supports is an excellent approach to address concerns of students who are at greater risk. We can expand the thinking of the multiple tier to address all hurtful incidents and situations. There are two questions to ask. Where are all involved students in this triangle? Are they generally in the green zone, or are they as students more closer to the yellow or red zone? And then ask, where does the incident or situation fall in this triangle, regardless of where the students are? Is this a minor incident that may fall within the green zone, or is this a more serious or very serious incident that is in the higher tiers? Under this analysis, students and staff should be able to effectively resolve minor hurtful incidents, whereas school leaders, principals, would engage in an effective investigation and intervention in the more serious, persistent, or pervasive situations. So under this analysis, Tier 1 level incidents are the minor incidents students can resolve themselves or with staff help, and we need to focus on empowering students and staff with effective skills. Tiers 2 or 3 are the serious, persistent, or pervasive situations that require a comprehensive investigation, supportive and restorative intervention, correction of hostile environment, and ongoing monitoring. The involved students may or may not otherwise be considered to be at a Tier 2 or 3 level of risk. For all students and all incidents and situations, it's necessary to take an empowerment perspective. A student who has been treated badly has had their power taken from them, or an attempt to take their power from them. Do not continue to take their power by assuming full control over how the incident or situation will be handled. Fully engage the student in the development of a plan of action to resolve the incident or situation. When staff witness a hurtful incident, the objective is to effectively and rapidly resolve the minor incident or identify the more serious, persistent, or pervasive situation for referral for a more comprehensive intervention. The steps are these: de-escalate the incident to ensure student safety. Conduct an initial private investigation with the targeted student to determine if this is minor or more serious. Handle the minor incident. Refer the more serious incident. To conduct an initial private investigation, separate the student who has been targeted and ask questions to determine whether this is one minor incident or what is actually a persistent or pervasive situation. Say something like this: I saw what happened. I know this appeared to be relatively minor. I want to make sure this is not happening to you frequently, because that's not okay. Has, name of student, been hurtful to you at other times? How, when, where is this occurring? How frequently? Are there any other students who are also treating you badly? How, when, where is this occurring? How frequently? How is this making you feel? Are there things you've tried to do to get this to stop? Do any other staff members know, or should they have seen this happening? To resolve minor incidents, if there's a conflict between equal empowered students, use conflict resolution. Make sure both are calm. Ask each to explain what happened and how this made them feel. Reflect back. I understand you're feeling. Name the feeling, because name what has been happening. Make sure both understand the perspective of the other person's experience and how this has made them feel. Then ask them to brainstorm solutions that would allow both to be happy. Help them agree what to try first, and if this does not work, what to try next. Ask them to shake hands on their agreement, and then check back later to see if things are okay. If there is an imbalance of power between the students who are involved, use a form of shuttle diplomacy. Ask the targeted student, what would it take to resolve the situation? Ask accountability questions of the hurtful student. I'll provide the accountability questions in a later slide. To achieve acceptance of personal responsibility and willingness to take steps to remedy the harm. Ask accountability questions also of any hurtful supporters, so they too will accept responsibility and take steps to remedy the harm. Ensure steps to remedy the harm are taken, and then follow up to ensure things got better. The plan of action for situations is that through an accountability process, the hurtful student and that student's supporters are guided to accept personal responsibility and agree to take steps to remedy the harm to the target and the school community. The challenges of any involved students should be identified and a positive action plan put into place to address those challenges. There may need to be protections put in place to support the target, and any necessary corrections need to be made to the environment. There is also the importance of ongoing monitoring to ensure that things are better for all students. As you're resolving a serious, persistent, or pervasive situation, recognize that this is a form of trauma. Students who have experienced this level of bullying, including those who may also have been hurtful, have experienced trauma. And a trauma-informed care approach that helps this student build resilience is essential. So my Be Positively Powerful resources developed out of the research and work that I was doing on how to develop this positive action plan. This came first, then came the book, Be Positively Powerful. So for any student with challenges, make sure there's a trusted adult or more than one involved. Assign one or more staff allies to consistently check in with this student. Check friendships. Help the student assess their current friendships and make plans to strengthen or expand those friendships based on mutual interests. Kindness. Encourage the targeted student to reach out to be kind to others at least 5 times a day. This will increase their peer acceptance. Engagement. Help the student pursue their strengths and interests. And empowerment. Encourage the student to focus on the good, practice mindfulness, keep their personal power, and think things through when they need to decide what to do. Assuming that this student does have challenges in social relationships, engage this student in a discussion about their perspective of these challenges, and then in problem solving of strategies they could use to address these concerns that use their strengths, collaborative problem solving, and identify the supports that they desire. Do not do this in a way that is dictating to the child, but helping the child engage in problem solving and then coming around behind to support that child by providing the supports that they need. These are the suggestions I suggest staff should ask when they check in. Who did you have a great connection with today? How did you reach out to be kind, and how did this make you feel? Remember, the evidence is clear that if these students who are typically targeted take the effort to reach out to be kind, this can significantly increase their acceptance and reduce the potential that they will continue to be treated badly. What did you do today that you are proud of? How did you use one of your strengths? What goal did you achieve? Were there any issues that came up that required you to remain calm, stand tall, and think things through? What happened today that you are thankful for? These are all the positive questions that we need to be asking these students on a very, very, very regular basis. It may be necessary for a protections plan to be put in place for a targeted student. These are some possible options to discuss with the student about whether or not this is needed. Increased staff supervision in troublesome areas. A safe passages requirement where the hurtful student will avoid certain areas in the school. Removal of the hurtful student from class or activities. A no contact order for the hurtful student. A place of calming where the targeted student should go if something upsetting has happened. Private practice of strategies to respond if someone is hurtful, and any other protections identified by the targeted student as potentially being helpful. The accountability process is a structured process that is based on personal commitments and shared values that hopefully you have engaged the students in creating, the psychology of influence, understanding of rationalizations, restorative practices, and collaborative problem solving, combined in a structured, individualized process that is used for students who have been hurtful, their supporters, or staff who have been hurtful. This process encourages them to reflect on their personal commitments, consider what others think about such actions, and helps them to recognize their motivations or rationalizations to get to the point where they will acknowledge harm that was caused and accept personal responsibility for their actions that caused such harm, and then engage in problem solving to develop a plan to remedy the harm. This is to encourage those who are hurtful, which includes students who were hurtful, their supporters, staff who were hurtful, or staff who ignored hurtful situations, to accept personal responsibility for their harmful actions. Help them to reflect on their personal commitments and shared values. What personal commitments did you make about how you will treat others? What are your thoughts on our school's shared values and your actions? Ask motivation questions. What were you trying to accomplish? Why did you do this? Why did you support this person's hurtful acts? Why did you not respond when you saw what was happening? Ask accountability questions. I'll be providing those. And watch for and challenge any rationalizations. Remember, it was just a joke, not my responsibility. They were overreacting. If they didn't do XYZ, this wouldn't have happened. These are the accountability questions. So these are the same questions that need to be asked by staff in resolving the minor incidents and by school leadership in addressing the more serious incidents. Reciprocity, golden rule. How would you feel if someone did that to you or to your best friend? Commitment. Here's where this personal commitment statement is critically important. How does this fit with your personal commitments? Social proof, positive social norms. What would others think? So if you've obtained my Be Positively Powerful student program and survey, you can actually discuss the opinions of other students in your school. How does this behavior go against our school's shared values? Hopefully, if you have taken the time to express these shared values on how the school community will treat each other. Continuing the accountability questions. Liking. What would your friends think about your behavior? Or, for a staff member, what would your colleagues think? Authority. What would your mom or dad think? Or, for staff members, what are our policies on these issues? Scarcity or possible loss. How could this damage your reputation? How might this get you into trouble? Listen for these rationalizations and challenge them. Spin it. It was just a joke. Deny responsibility. Someone else started it. Or staff member will say, well, it wasn't my responsibility. Deny the harm. She was just overreacting. Blame the other. He deserved it. It's really important that you talk with the students who are perceived to have been supporting those who were hurtful. They are in the best position to support avoidance of future harm. And this is addressed in my student program, Be Positively Powerful. Encourage them to ask accountability questions of their friend and to identify when their friend is rationalizing hurtful behaviors. Encourage them to encourage their friend to make things right by noting how other students would admire them if they did this. You can support that with the Be Positively Powerful survey and help them, the supporters, think things through to develop a way to remedy the harm. They also have a responsibility to remedy the harm to the student who is targeted because they were supporting that harm. And, if necessary, encourage them to evaluate the continuation of their friendship based on their friend's response to what is happening in this situation. When working with a hurtful student or a supporter to develop a plan to remedy the harm to the target and the school community, collaboratively think things through to identify strategies they could use to remedy the harm to the one treated badly and the school community. A school-added remedy of harm to the community should require that the student, hurtful student or supporter, engage in a certain number of acts of kindness to other students every day for a certain number of days, with a required daily report to the principal on how they were kind to others, and you can then discuss what happened, how did this make them feel, etc. But this is what I really strongly suggest as a required remedy of harm to the community. Because you were hurtful, you will, for the next 30 days, reach out to be kind to 5 different students, and you will keep a record of this, and you will provide that record to me every day at the end of the day, so we can have a check on to make sure that you are engaging in these kind acts. The accountability process should result in an accountability agreement. The accountability agreement should contain a statement by the student that acknowledges wrongdoing and the harmful impact, a statement of how the student will remedy the harm to the targeted student, and how the student will remedy the harm to the school community, including the requirement of acts of kindness, the student's agreement to abide by the protections plan if one is necessary, and will avoid any further harmful acts. This agreement should be signed by the student and their parents, and any disciplinary consequence would be noted that this is being held in abeyance in light of this agreement. An adaptation of this accountability process and agreement is if there are bidirectional hurtful acts. If everybody involved in the situation has been hurtful, frequently this is called drama, then conduct the accountability process and complete an accountability agreement with all of the involved parties. And either or both in this situation may require a positive action plan or a protections plan. The third and exceptionally important aspect of the civil rights requirements response is to assess and correct the environment. So, identify any aspects of the environment that may be supporting the hurtful actions of students. Are any staff being hurtful, or did any staff fail to effectively intervene? Does your behavior management plan model denigration and exclusion of certain students, especially students with challenges? Are you using token rewards or behavior charts? Are there concerns regarding cultural competence of staff and students and the acceptance of diversity? Are there concerns related to athletics or other groups and their standards and perspectives? Also, look at your school climate data to identify where concerns might exist. And then set forth actions of a plan and write this down for how you're going to correct the aspects of the environment. Establish clear expectations and directives for staff and provide professional development so they avoid actions that are causing harm and know how to step in to help if they witness harm being caused. Implement necessary modifications of your behavior management plan to ensure that it promotes equity and inclusion. Increase strategies to increase the cultural competence of staff and students and to support greater equity and inclusion. Increase authentic student voice. Modify and enforce the requirements that any athletic programs or other groups promote equity and inclusion, and develop and follow an evaluation plan to make sure that the corrections you are making to the environment are effective. If a student is on an IEP or 504, then the protections plan and any necessary staff directives and professional development needs, as well as strategies to improve the environment to increase inclusion of this student and other students with disabilities, should be included in the Supplemental Aids and Services section of the student's IEP or 504. And you're likely going to have to assess and revise an overall behavior management plan to ensure that it does not shame or exclude this student. In addition, in all likelihood, this student would benefit with a focus on functional skills to support interpersonal relationships. So, engage in a comprehensive analysis of this student's interpersonal relationship skills challenges that may be contributing to the hurtful incidents or their response. Now, this isn't to blame the child for the fact that the child is being treated in this manner. That would be a rationalization. This is to have an honest identification of the challenges this student is facing. Then create functional skills objectives and develop an instructional plan with an evaluation component. In addition, in the functional skills section, incorporate components of the positive action plan. This should not be considered your standard FBA. The current FBA approach often involves looking at antecedents, behavior, and consequences. This ABC thinking is grounded in 1950s behavior management theory that has not been upgraded to reflect insight into trauma or strengths. So, rely on a collaborative problem solving and a trauma assessment to support a better understanding of this student's deficits and challenges. Identify what situations triggered this student to help the student develop a self-regulation plan, and identify the student's strengths to develop a positive actions plan. Ongoing monitoring is absolutely essential to ensure that things are better for all involved students after going through this approach. So, monitoring of any student on a positive action plan by that student's appointed staff allies. Monitoring of the protections plan by the principal or appointed staff to ensure that those plan provisions are being abided by. And monitoring of the accountability agreement with the hurtful student and supporters by the principal. Now, we also have to talk about staff behavior concerns. What must not occur when there are concerns of staff behavior, and this includes being hurtful, even if this is just a microaggression, or ignoring the hurtful behavior of students, are witnessed or reported. What must not occur is ignoring the behavior or report, not allowing student voice to be adequately heard, and not requiring a statement of personal accountability and a remedy of harm to the harmed student or students that is communicated to them. What these harmful actions will cause is a lack of trust. It is also my recommendation that the multiple tier system of supports be used if there are any staff incidents. This includes hurtful incidents, a microaggression, or ignoring situations where the student is being treated badly by others. At the Tier 1 level, require that the staff enter into an accountability agreement, just as we've outlined for students, components of which will be provided to the student, and those components are a written statement of personal responsibility and a sincere apology to remedy the harm. At the Tier 2 level, I recommend implementing a restorative conference if staff has been hurtful in a correctable way, and I'll expand on that. At the Tier 3 level, we probably are at the level where we need disciplinary removal for serious or persistent hurtful situations. At the Tier 2 level, I strongly recommend that you hold a formal restorative conference conducted by a trained professional. This conference would include a presentation by students, witnesses, students' parents on the experience and the harmful impact, and the targeted student may need support in doing this. A response by the staff member, to which influence questions are asked, and watch out for any rationalizations. Then, develop plans to remedy the harm by the staff member and achieve agreement on the outcomes. Now, I can almost absolutely promise you that after 2 or 3 staff hurtful behavior restorative conferences occur in your school, there will be a significant improvement in both how staff treat students and how they respond if they witness hurtful behavior. It's only going to take 2 or 3 conferences. The message will be sent. In this last section, I'm going to set forth my recommendations for the establishment of a peer assistance and accountability team. Now, establish this as a select group of students within your student leadership team. There will need to be an application to be a member. The team members will be required to receive additional instruction, and there must be strict requirements of confidentiality. The primary purpose is to facilitate the accountability process with students, and they can also engage in providing peer support and peer mediation. The idea for the peer assistance and accountability team is modeled after the successful implementations of both peer courts and peer mediation processes. The underlying wisdom is that that students, especially teens, are going to be far more receptive to what their peers think. Peer assistance and accountability team members are also far more likely to effectively call out the hurtful students on any BS that they set forth in a meeting than staff can. And as students, the peer acceptance and accountability team members are more likely to learn about violations of the accountability agreement than staff will. So to conduct an accountability process, the PAT members should include 1 student of a higher social status in the school, 1 student who is within the class of students who are more frequently treated badly within school, and if possible, 1 student who has been hurtful and has gone through the accountability process and has now become involved with the student leadership team. The accountability process would be the same as I set forth earlier, so students are going to have to be trained how to implement this process. There are other strategies that could be implemented to use the peer assistance and accountability team members to provide support for other students. They could volunteer to serve as special friends to facilitate the inclusion of students with disabilities, ELL students, students who are new, or others who might have challenges within the larger school community. They could be trained in providing peer support services and hold office hours in the school. They could also be trained to provide helpline support for a youth helpline that functions through phone or texting. Peer accountability and assistant team members could also be trained in the process of providing peer mediation and conflict resolution. They could offer peer mediation service through office hours or at student request. Staff could request peer mediation services to help resolve peer conflict in their classroom. Or a team of peer assistance and accountability team peer mediators could be appointed to be present in places or at events where controversies might arise. We have come to the end of my 3-part video series. I hope you have enjoyed this and have benefited from the insight. I am available for consultation for school districts who want more information or insight or support in implementing these strategies. Blessings. Be well.